I want to welcome everybody to the director's cut of Eliminate the Stigma. And I have here Darnell, Hinton, the founder of Teachonefeedone. And we're actually going to speak with you and have you give some insight as to the program and why you created the Eliminate the Stigma documentary and the photo shoot that you did the year previous. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us who you are, what you do on a daily basis, and sort of what led you to create the organization Teach One, Feed One.
Okay. I'm Darnell Hinton. I'm 30 years old. I'm the executive director and founder of Teachonefeedone. We're a nonprofit organization based out of Philadelphia. And our mission is everything we do, we believe in eliminating the stigma attached with addiction and challenging the way that the disease is approached. In doing so, what we do is we offer people the necessary resources and provide them the necessary resources to help get them into treatment or seek treatment. And then conversely, on the other end as well, we provide the necessary resources for someone who has successfully completed treatment or is ready to discharge to help them maintain sustained sobriety moving forward as well. So, we put the organization together to provide those resources to people and provide resources to families who have been impacted by addiction to just do our part in trying to make a difference.
Okay, sounds great. So what made you then go from just doing your normal work with Teach One, Feed One to specifically doing a program to eliminate the stigma?
Okay. So eliminating the stigma, right? That's a part of our mission. So everything we do, it's the first sentence. Everything we do, we believe in eliminating the stigma attached with addiction. So that's a huge part of what we're trying to accomplish here. So the entire, point of the Eliminate the Stigma documentary, right, was we wanted to give people the opportunity and the platform to stand in front of a camera or stand in front of another person and tell their story, whatever it may be, if it's about their daughter or their father, their mother, their son. We wanted to offer people a platform where they can, get some things off their chest and just converse with another person about, what their story or what their story with addiction has been. And then in doing so, right, what we were really trying to accomplish was we were trying to, have people who were watching indirectly, who may have tuned into the documentary, to be able to see people, get up in front of a camera and share their story and then find the strength in themselves to be able to do that themselves. So hopefully people that tuned in, they seen people get up in front of a camera and share their story and they were inspired and they were moved by it to a point where they said, wow, that was pretty, strong, and that was admirable for that person to sit up and tell their story that way. Now I'm not going to be ashamed to tell my story now. I'm going to get up and I'm going to do the same thing, because if that person can do that, then I know that I can do the same thing, and I'm not going to be ashamed to do it anymore either.
Okay. So as it relates to addiction, what made you specifically want to target that? Did you have an interaction with, or did you have a relationship? Did you have a situation? Have you ever dealt with addiction in any sort of way, form? Like, what led you to kind of creating this program in that form?
Okay, yeah. So, I myself, I just celebrated 3 years clean.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I just celebrated 3 years clean, I want to say 3 Sundays ago. So my sober date is March 14th. It's the most important day of my life. So, yes, to answer your question, I started using when I was 21. And I think that process went on for like the next 7 or 8 years of my life. So I've been to about in and out of like 9 or 10 treatment centers.
Sure. How did you start using initially?
So,
because we don't, when we sort of get the idea of a person that is using drugs, we kind of get like the idea of like somebody who might be a bum on the street, that's, holding a paper bag and all their teeth missing, right? We may envision somebody who is a rock star living a crazy life and, they're all over the place. Tell us a little bit about your situation, your particular.
Yeah, so my situation is a little bit different. I'm definitely not a rock star. And, you know, I grew up with two amazing parents, right? I couldn't have asked for more from my parents, right? Like, we weren't rich by any means. We were, like, you know, kind of like right in the middle. Like, we weren't poor, but we didn't have the most money either. We were kind of like right in the middle class
family, typical middle class family.
Right, but they made sure that I had everything I needed and more, right? Like both financially and, you know, non-financially as well, just from a family supportive standpoint as well. So I grew up, I would say, like any other kid, you know. I didn't imagine this being something that I would be dealing with, you know, when I was 21 years old. But unfortunately, you know, that's what happened. You know, I started using Percocets when I was in college.
Okay.
And at the time, to be honest with you, I didn't even know what a Percocet was. I just knew what the people who were using them told me, and they told me that it felt good. So, you know, one thing led to another, and I tried it. You know, little did I know that process would go on for the next 7 or 8 years of my life in and out of treatment centers.
Have you tried anything else like before that? Like any other drugs? Have you ever found yourself to be addicted to anything else like before this?
So, no, to my knowledge, right? No, but you know, that's a really good question because I believe, right? Like, I believe that this is something that I was born with, right? But I can't go back and identify where that process started. If you ask my mom or if you ask my dad, they might say, yeah, he had addictive behaviors when he was a kid. Like, he was really into wrestling. Like, he had, like, a really addictive personality with that. Or when he eats addictively. Like, they might say things like that, but there's nothing that I can go back to personally and identify and say, like, yeah, you know, I did notice those things as a kid. I kind of, you know, it took me a while to notice that I even had a problem, to be honest with you. Like, it took me to get to, like, my first treatment center to really, like, sit down and go, like, wow, like, I'm really here, and this is a little bit scary. Like, I'm 22 years old, and I'm sitting in a treatment facility, and for those that have never been to a treatment facility, like, it's extremely, extremely scary. Like, it's something that you would never envision. Like, you have kids, right? So it's something that I'm sure, you know, you don't sit back and think, like, as you, you know, get your daughter ready for school in the morning or you walk her to the bus stop. It's not going through your head like, damn, in 20 years she's going to be sitting in a treatment facility. And I'm sure my parents weren't thinking the same thing. But guess what? It happened, you know, and it's incredibly scary if you've never been there. Those who have been to treatment before can identify with what I'm talking about. Like, you know, when you first walk in, there's this huge room that you walk into, right? And then you kind of sit on a couch, and your parents or your family who are there to support you, if you have family that are there to support you, they sit on the other side of the couch. And you guys are both kind of just sitting there like, okay, kind of preparing yourself for what's about to happen. And there's usually some emotion involved because, you know, they're kind of, it's hitting them as well, like, okay, we're in a treatment facility right now. And then eventually, some guy or some girl walks out and they say, okay, you know, Darnell or whoever, you know, we're ready for you. You know, family, it's time to say goodbye now at this point. And then at that time, you know, usually it gets really emotional because that's kind of when it sinks in, right? And the family is like, okay, here's a hug or whatever. Like, you know, we'll see you when we see you, I guess. I guess this is goodbye. And then you walk into this room and you sit down with some guy who you've never spoken to before in your life, and he kind of asks you all these questions, right? So he'll say, well, when did you first use? And why did you first use? How have drugs or alcohol affected your life? What have you lost because of drugs and alcohol? Have you lost your job? How many times a day are you using? Why do you use? And it just goes on. They ask you a bunch of questions, right, to try and gauge, you know, I guess the level of treatment that you need. But in doing so, what happens is you're answering these questions and everything's kind of hitting you at that point because you're basically like verbalizing. You're putting
all of the things that you spoke about,
right,
and never dealt with in the first place.
All of the things that you've never dealt with, but it's kind of hitting reality as well. Like when they say like, what have you lost because of your addiction? Well, you know, I've lost my job, I've lost my girlfriend, I've lost relationships with my family, I've lost this and I've lost that. And that's kind of when it all hits you and you're kind of like, wow, like how did I get here? How did this happen? How did I get to this point?
Wow, so it's possible to be dealing with addiction, you're in it and don't even know that you're addicted, let alone even was prepared or even expecting it to even happen to you in the first place. So that seems to be like, that's really surprising and alarming. I think a lot of people don't know that. What would you say is a big thing that people misunderstand about people that are dealing with addiction?
So there are, I should say, a lot of things that people...
So let's start with like the biggest, right? The biggest misconception, the biggest thing that people miss, and then kind of take it down a little bit and give us some more.
Okay. So I would say the biggest misconception maybe is, just the fact that, or maybe not even a misconception, but just the biggest thing I would identify is the fact that people just, they look at someone who is using drugs or using alcohol, and they identify that with them being someone who I guess is just split off from the rest of the world. So they kind of, going back to that stigma attached with addiction, right? So they kind of put them in a category by themselves. So I guess, minimizing the issues or the problems that person might be going through as if like they don't matter. So if I came to you, for example, right, and if I came to you and I said, hey, Maurice, I just went to the doctors the other day and they found a lump on my chest and they think it might be cancerous, right? You might say something like, oh my God, are you okay? Is there anything I can do? Right. What else did they say? But if I came to you, or not even you, but if I came to someone and I said, hey, I have something to tell you. I've been using Percocets. I can't get off of them. I don't know what to do. I'm beginning to do things I never said I would do ever before in my life. I've stolen from my family. People might be afraid to share that with you because they might be afraid how you might react to it. It might be a completely different reaction where it shouldn't be, right? Because if I felt comfortable enough to come to you because I love you and you love me and I'm going through something, right, and I'm reaching out to you for help, then the only thing that should matter is the fact that I'm reaching out to you and I'm telling you that I need your help and I need you to listen to me. It shouldn't be like situational. It shouldn't be there shouldn't be circumstances on that as far as why I need your help or what I need your help for. Why does it matter that it's for the fact that I'm struggling with addiction? Why does that matter? All that matters is that I love you and you love me and that I need your help.
Got you. So basically, when people hear or understand that a person is dealing with addiction, they kind of disregard that person. Right. It's like a person that's dealing with a mental health issue, maybe like some schizophrenia or something like that, and people just disregard that person and just say, oh, they're crazy. Mm-hmm. They're crazy. So that's sort of what you're saying, like people sort of just like disregard a person.
Well, they minimize, like they make it, they marginalize it. They make it like smaller than what it is, So, and that's not
What do you mean
comforting.
About that? What do you mean like make it smaller?
So basically, right, if someone who has lost, and I know this from personal experience, people who have lost loved ones because of addiction, right, they will tell you personally, and these are friends and family members that they have gone to, they might go to someone that they love and that they care about, and they might ask them, how are you doing, with such and such, and they say, oh, well, actually I just lost my son to a drug overdose. My son just died. And they'll let you know that the reaction from the person that they just told that to will be like a kind of like a
callous,
like callous, like, yeah, as if like that person losing their son or their loved one is less because it's less tragic because it came from a drug overdose. Why does it matter how it happened? I just don't understand that. You know, what if I told you that I lost someone because they got in a car accident? You know, I wouldn't get that reaction from you. You would be there for me and you would tell me, "Oh my God, I love you so much. Is there anything I can do?"
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's that way because not enough people are educated on it, of course. And it's something where if they haven't been through it personally, or not even personally, but maybe like someone in their immediate family hasn't gone through, then they feel as though that it's not that important, or they just don't have the information to be as in tune with it as someone else does. So, you know, hopefully with time and with more education, we can fix that.
Okay. All right. Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. So I know we did a photo shoot for the first season of Eliminate the Stigma, and we had some families out, we had some couples out. You know, we even had your mom and dad out there. I noticed that one of the signs, you know, it kind of stuck out, and it, you know, as all of them did, but this one in particular, I want to kind of ask you more about it. It said drugs were never our problem. Drugs were the solution to our problem. What does that mean? Like, what do you mean by that?
Okay, so what I mean by that is, right, addiction, right, is not, people hear addiction and immediately they think drugs. That's wrong, right? Addiction comes in all shapes, forms, and sizes. So addiction can be gambling, addiction can be sex, addiction can be food, addiction can be a number of things, right? So someone who is suffering from addiction, right, drugs are not their problem. Like, drugs are not my problem. Drugs have nothing to do with my problem. My problem is me and the way that my brain works. Drugs were a temporary solution to my problem, right? So, you know, I chose to pick up drugs and alcohol. I did not choose for my body to react differently than anyone else's when I put drugs or alcohol in it. Okay. So the decision to pick up a drug or alcohol is a choice, but being 1 in every 7 Americans with a disease of addiction is not. So basically what I'm saying is, you know, and follow me. So it can be a little complicated for people to understand this who have never been through it, because I didn't fully understand this until like 9 treatment centers later. So the drugs have nothing to do with the problem. The problem is me, right? So I can be extremely impulsive. I can be extremely, like, when I want something, I want it, and I want it right now. Like instant gratification, right? Sometimes I get really bad anxiety. Percocets and opiates, they helped me with that. Like that, when I found that, it shut all that off, right? I was no longer impulsive. Like the instant gratification was there. It did everything that I was looking for, and I could be anyone that I wanted to be at any given time, right? So that was a solution to the problem, which is me. With or without Percocets, I still have to deal with those problems, right? Right now, because I'm sober, I just need to find healthier ways to deal with those solutions. I need to find a healthier way or healthier solutions to deal with me, which is the problem. So whether that's therapy, sitting in front of someone and talking to another person, NA or AA meetings, which is essentially the same thing, exercising, meditating, whatever the case may be, to help me, healthy ways, right? No longer Percocets, no longer opiates, no longer alcohol, healthier ways to deal with me. The drugs were not the problem. The problem is me, and the problem will always be me. I've been sober 3 years at this point. I still have those same problems. I just don't use drugs to fix them anymore. I use healthier things to fix the problem. I hope that makes sense.
No, yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Okay.
All right, so what is your overall belief in where we're headed as far as eliminating the stigma? Are you optimistic? Are you pessimistic? And what do you think an individual can do themselves to sort of help this overall issue?
So I'm extremely, extremely optimistic about it.
Really? Nice.
Extremely optimistic. I think with organizations like our own and other great organizations out there that are, you know, getting information out there and educating people and putting the footwork in to bring more awareness to this and normalize it, I think that leaves me extremely optimistic about that. What other people can do to help is other people can, tune in, right? Or if you're someone who has struggled with addiction personally, or you have someone in your family who struggled with addiction, speak about it, talk about it, normalize it. Like, come out and don't be afraid to share your story. Like, don't be afraid to tell someone that you're sitting in the car with, like, hey, can I talk to you about something right now? Like, my mom, my mom just, she's using these pills and she can't get off of them, and I don't know how to help her. Is there anything you can do for me? Don't be afraid to tell someone that, because that by itself is not helping the issue, because when you're not talking about it, then no one knows about it. So those are just a couple things people can do, and another couple things that people can do is they can just support their sober friends. If you know someone who's in sobriety, support them. Like I told you, March 14th is my sober date. That's the most important day of my life. Like, it's more important to me than my birthday. It's more important to me than anything. Like, I see, so...
Really? Expand on that. Why is it more important than your birthday?
It's a lot more important to me than my birthday, because it's the day that, my life changed forever, right? What I'm saying is if you know other people, right, who are sober, like, support them and recognize that, because when they were using, right, we didn't hesitate to let them know when they disappointed us. We didn't hesitate to let them know that they upset us. We didn't hesitate to let them know, you're this and you're that and you're this. We made sure we put them down. But now when they're doing the right things, we need to make sure that we're doing the same thing, and we're congratulating them, and we're recognizing their days of sobriety, and we're congratulating them on their anniversary dates of sobriety. So another thing that I notice is people who, like, let's say a child, for instance, is suffering from cancer, right? I'm sure you've seen this before. If they go through chemotherapy and, they are advised to, shave their head, or they start losing their hair, you might see someone else, right, a family member, do the same thing in their support. And that is amazing. I love that, right? Like, that's awesome. You're letting that person know, like, I'm here with you. Like, you have to shave your head, I'm going to do the same thing, just to let you know that you're not alone. So when you see someone in sobriety, let's say you have a friend or a cousin or an uncle who's struggling and they just can't get it. They've been to 10 treatment centers and they just can't get it. They go to rehab, they come out. Tell that person, like, hey, listen, I just want to let you know that I'm here with you, and I'm making a commitment to myself and to you as well. If it helps you, for the first 90 days of your sobriety, I'm not going to drink either. So I'm just letting you know that I'm here with you. In those first 90 days of your sobriety, I'll be here every step with you. I'm giving up drinking as well, and I'm going to support you on your road to sobriety. You'd be surprised what that can do for someone. You'd be surprised, like, what that might do for... They might not even say it to you, but you'd be surprised inside what that would do for that person to hear you say, like, damn, I'm going to give up drinking too for the first 90 days of your sobriety. Like, I just wish more people would be like that. So, hopefully in the future.
Nice. So you said that, March 14th, that was a big day. Your life changed. Tell me a little bit about how your life has now changed from where it was to where it is now, and sort of give some insight for a person that may be struggling with addiction, where they can come to a family member that may be struggling with another family member that, is dealing with addiction. What they can sort of look forward to, because you're on this journey, you're taking this journey, and I believe you can give people insight as to the other side of it as well. I know people go back to treatment tons of times. You said yourself, you went back so many times, but now it's on the other end of this. So obviously, your family didn't give up on you after the 8th time that you went there or the 9th time that you went there. They continue to stick with you. And now you're here, and you have a lot for your mom and your dad to be proud about. So kind of give us some insight as to how your life changed, where you're at now and your appreciation for what you've been through and what you're giving to people now.
Okay. Yeah, it's a great question. So my life has changed in every single way possible, right? So, because like you said, I've been to treatment a bunch of times, right? In and out of treatment. But in the midst of that, like, I've damaged relationships with friends. I've damaged relationships with girlfriends. I've stolen from people that I love. I've done things like, things that I don't even need to talk about that, like, just really bad things that every person who's battling.
Did they represent those things that you were doing? Did they represent who you were?
I don't think they represent I guess who I was. I guess you can say that, but these are all things that just took place while I was using, So
so why should a person have sympathy for dealing with a person that they're having these, negative effects of that person dealing with addiction? Like, how can a person sort of try to eliminate the stigma when they're dealing so, actively with a person who's suffering from addiction? What can you tell that person to kind of help them and give them insight?
As far as
like the person who's dealing with a person who has the addiction. Well, so your mom, like, what did your mom do? What did your sister do?
Support them. I would just say support them and don't give up on them.
So understand
like we do with every other disease, right? I understand that it can be frustrating.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm not saying that people shouldn't be held accountable for their actions, right? I did plenty of things. Like, I got kicked out of my mom's house on my birthday. Right. Like, I've been to my grandmom's house and asked for a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and she told me no. But these are all things that I did to myself, like I'm not saying that you shouldn't be held accountable for your actions, but, right, at the same time, you should still support them. Okay. You should still let them know. It's okay to let them know, like, hey, I love you, I support you, and I will be there with you every step of the way of your sobriety, but I cannot and I will not enable you in the process, of watching you continue to kill yourself, slowly kill yourself. So when you are ready to accept help, there's nothing I will not do for you. I love you. There's nothing I won't do for you. But until that time, I need you to be able to meet me halfway, and until that time, I can't continue to watch you kill yourself. I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all, to be honest with you.
Nice. Okay. So, what have you sort of learned? And I still want to kind of go over like the journey I kind of want to touch on the journey within the 3 years, like how it progressed, like, because I'm sure some people have some doubts. I'm sure some people didn't believe you that you were going to be sober this time, things that you may have dealt with in that regard. Sort of run us through those things. Like, in the last 3 years, how has the journey been? Like, what has the journey been like?
So first of all, the journey's been amazing because I'm still clean, and I would say it's just, it's a lot of ups and downs, like anything else. It's definitely, I don't expect anything to be perfect, but it's just been like, we've been able to accomplish some amazing things over these past 3 years. And me personally, I've been able to accomplish some amazing things. Like, I think a couple weeks ago, or, a month ago, we just presented a scholarship, right? A $500 scholarship to a lady's son who is no longer here with us. And that scholarship is going to go on forever, for as long as Teach One, Feed One is in business. We're going to give that scholarship away every year to honor her son. And that's a $500 scholarship, just to let the family know that, their son's name didn't go in vain, and to give them some reassurance of that as well. Like, that's, when I sit back and think about that, that's pretty amazing, thinking that like three years ago, I was sleeping in my car, and now I'm at this lady's house who I've never met before in my life. Like, I've never met her before in my life, before meeting up to do this, of course, but never thought we would cross paths. Like, who I'm just some kid from Norristown, Pennsylvania, who, is 3 months or three years clean at this point, and now went from sleeping in my car to presenting a scholarship to this lady's son, and that is potentially gonna, hopefully, right, is gonna just make that family happy for a little bit. So I would have never thought that I would be here, and it's special because if you're in sobriety or if you're in recovery, then you kind of just take for granted while you're using and while you're actively using, you kind of take for granted like life, like you take for granted all of the things associated with life as well, because you can be so absorbed in that life and you can just be so wrapped up in that life. You take for granted like something as simple as just calling your mom and just telling her that you love her, or something as simple as just being able to be in a position to go and sit and have lunch with your dad or your mom or your sister, or just being able to be present at like your little brother's birthday party or something like that. You kind of forget about those things, and you forget that there's like a whole nother world out there because you're so absorbed in that. And now I say that to say, I've been able to do all of those things like on my journey to sobriety. Like now, like I'm present. Like when there's friends or family or there's events or get-togethers, like I'm present in the room. I'm not just there and just kind of just walking around like a corpse. Like I'm actually present as to what's going on, and I'm able to call my mom and tell her like, hey mom, I love you. You know what I mean? Not because like I'm trying to scheme money out of her, or not because like I'm trying to tell her to, just because it's my mom and she deserves to hear that. You know what I mean? Or I'm able to pick up the phone and call my dad and say, yo dad, like what are you doing? Let's let's go out and go get some wings and go watch the game. Like those are things that you take for granted in your active use, and those are just kind of like the blessings that like me, and I'm sure everyone else who is sober can tell you the same things. Like those are just the little things that matter now. So
nice. So I feel like we did sort of cover anything and everything, but was there any things that you wanted to say, any information you wanted to get out there to people, a message, kind of some direction? What are people's steps, like anything like that?
I mean, I would just say, I guess the reason why, we do what we do as an organization, is because, first and foremost, we're just trying to make a difference. Like many other organizations out there, we're just trying to get as much information and as much knowledge out to other people, to ultimately, eliminate the stigma attached with addiction and challenge the way that the disease is approached. In doing so, right, we want to be able to just impact everyone, right? So I want, someone who's battling addiction, right, to be able to look at me and be like, damn, like that dude was sleeping in his car. Now he's 3 years clean, and he's leading an organization. Like I want that guy to be like, if that guy can do that, then I know I can do the same thing. I want, a mother who has lost their child, right, to be able to look at me and just be like, when they hear someone say something rude or ignorant, or just uneducated about someone in sobriety or someone battling addiction, I want them to be able to point at me and be like, you know what, you're wrong, and I have an example of someone that I can show you as to why you're wrong, right? Like I want little kids growing up in Norristown, black and brown kids, to be able to look at me who are kind of like too ashamed if they're going through something, or let's say their mom is battling addiction, or let's say they grow up and they're battling addiction and they're too ashamed to come out and say it, because that's kind of the environment that we've created for ourselves. That's kind of part of my story, at least. I was too ashamed to come out and say it. I want them to be able to look at me and be like, that dude looks like me. So I'm gonna use him as inspiration, and I'm gonna go, you know what, if he can come out and he can share his story, then I'm gonna find the strength within myself to share my story as well. So I just want to be able to hopefully make a difference, and then just encompass everything within our mission, which is, like I said, eliminate the stigma attached with addiction, and challenge the way that the disease is approached.